on day 4 of my 28-day journey of reclaiming and owning my Indian identity. And today I decided to do a longer video because I want to talk about what actually inspired me to share this journey and even frame it in this way of a 28-day journey. I'm going to talk about my story of how I have come here and what it really means, this split within my identity of Tio and Rohan, and how on this trip I am finally integrating the two and realizing that they are not separate. The split began actually right back on that bed where I had a drug overdose at the age of 16. And in that, I had a very strong experience of dissociation where I saw my soul leaving my body and I did not actually see it returning. And after that, for almost 12 to 13 years, I experienced a very strong depersonalization disorder, which is an it's a disassociation from your identity, of your sense of self, of your story, your character. So the character of Rohan that I was familiar with, that I knew who I am, how I behave, my habits, my beliefs, all of that, which was packaged into this container of identity called Rohan, suddenly just broke. I split from it. And what emerged from that was a transient identity where, firstly, like just stepping back, Rohan was defined by a lot of repression, a lot of rebellion, and a lot of anxiety of having to conform to a very rigid and harsh culture of conformity to very rigid ideals. So when I had the drug overdose, what happened was that this anxiety suddenly just lifted and I became this cool, chilled, calm person. Something I had never known before. I used to be very wired, very intense, not in a very extroverted way, but internally. And once that lifted, a whole new personality emerged, because you can imagine someone who's deeply rooted in anxiety and someone who's not are two actually completely different people. But at this stage, I was still 16, so I was very young, very immature, very unconscious. And so what emerged was I called it a transient personality because it was not intentional. It was not driven by any consciousness. It was just suddenly a release of this anxiety, and then other influences started coming in, which started shaping this personality, which was the group of friends who introduced me to smoking and drugs and other stuff. So this new personality then just became a melting pot of all the influences I had apart from family and culture, which I had in the first 16 years. And 5 years after that, I left from India and went to the US. I picked up some influences there. And then finally, I went for an ayahuasca retreat at the age of 24, where my spiritual awakening began. But yet, I had not come into the consciousness of defining my identity. So I still kept accumulating influences into that transient identity. So this transient identity just kept becoming a buildup of many mixed different influences. And it was only at the end of 2018 that some shift in consciousness occurred where I decided to start choosing who I want to be. And that is where the personality of Tio emerged. Tio was my personality of choice, my personality of intention. Whereas Rohan had been this personality that was given to me, that was enforced by culture, that was full of expectations and obligations of who I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to do, how I'm supposed to behave, what I'm even supposed to believe, what I'm supposed to be called. There was a lot of rejection when I decided to change my name and chose the name of Tio. Many people just said, "We are not going to call you that." They felt entitled to decide what I should be called. And for me, that was the first realization of how strongly people are attached to my old identity and how entitled they feel to control and govern who I'm supposed to be at the very root. Like, even my name, they get to decide. And that is where my journey really started of becoming intentional and defining myself. Because for the first 16 years, I had been defined from the outside by culture. And the drug overdose created this dissociation, this lack of identity. While even though I was accumulating influences from the outside, within me, I did not feel identified with any of that. I would just melt into anything. I was more like a chameleon that I could become this with this group of people. I could become that with that group of people. So I did not have any fixed, solid identity. And that was my phase of being undefined, of having no core central identity that felt like me. I literally, my inner dialogue would be, I am this and I am that and I'm that and I'm that and I'm that. And I don't have to be attached to anything. And while this felt great, it was a freedom from not having to conform to any one specific ideology or set of beliefs. It was a huge liberation that finally I can just be anything. If I feel like I can be spiritual, I can be vegan, I can be rational, I can be an omnivore again. I can just keep moving around and I don't have to be fixed or defined by anything. The shift when I started realizing that not having an identity is feels as powerless as being defined by an identity governed by external influences. Both of them feel very powerless. And that is when I realized that I want to start becoming very intentional with who I am. I actually want to make choices and define myself and put limits and create this container in which I feel home, in which I feel like this is me. And it's not as arbitrary as it sounds. It's not like I just choose from this menu. It's like, I want to be this, I want to be this, I want to be this, I want to be this. That I was doing for some time, and that was an immature version of me. But the more I started coming into maturity, what really being self-defined was about coming into my authenticity, about listening to my inner world, about listening to what resonates with me, what aligns with me. Because I can listen to 10 different opinions and then say some part of opinion number 3 makes sense, some part of number 6 makes sense, some part of number 9 makes sense. So I'm going to become this 369 combo. Great. But that unique combo of 369 is what defines me then. That becomes my identity. And I am intentionally choosing to stick to that identity in a sense of core values. That doesn't mean I become rigid, but it does mean I have a container within which I can be infinite. I can have all of these infinite combinations, but they're still intentional within a strongly defined container. And the more I started doing this, the more I started feeling a sense of security within my sense of self. So that whole sense of dissociation that I had been experiencing finally started integrating into a sense of self, into feeling whole again. It took a long time. It's only been in the last year, maybe since last September, where this real process of integration and wholeness started happening, where I realized that, again, this applies to a lot of people, that when you are on the healing journey, everything can feel like it's falling apart. Your whole identity is kind of getting ripped apart because I'm defined by this trauma, and I'm defined by this trauma, and I'm defined by this cultural belief, and I'm defined by this habit. And you start peeling everything away, and suddenly it's like, who am I? And the main thing I started understanding through this is that the who am I is what emerges when you peel away all of this. And there is an inherent sense of self that is present underneath all of those layers of conditioning and programming. And the more we disidentify with that, there can be this in between space of feeling floaty, of feeling uncertain, of feeling insecure. If you can move through that space, if you can persist through that and just allow that not knowingness to be there, that is where the silent voice of knowingness, of your intuition, of your essence, of your soul starts arising. It's in that silence when you just say, it's okay if I don't know who I am. I'll just wait. I will allow this not knowingness to be there, and I will wait for something to emerge. And when the real you emerges, it will be so clear, it will be so certain that there is no doubt in your mind that this is who I am. Because when there are external influences that you have to choose from, am I this? Am I that? This sounds like I could be this. This sounds, but that unique combination that you are, that just emerges from within, and you know it to be true because it vibrates throughout you. And yes, it can help a lot to have mentors, to have coaches, to have guides who help you to surface this soul, this essence. I've had a lot of that throughout my journey. And it's thanks to that honestly my journey has been very fast relatively, because even though it took 10 years, where I was so dark, was so lost, so dissociated. Most people can't even understand what it means to not have a sense of self, because most people are very identified with their sense of self. People think they know who they are. And so, not actually knowing who you are and just living with this very fluid, no sense of self is not even understandable to most people. But, and the people who experience that usually never come out of it. Or if they come out of it, they get identified with something which is not really them. They get identified with a spiritual identity because, again, some guru, some teacher tells them this is who you are, and they just buy that because it's so convenient. So many people experience this switching from their birth identity into a spiritual identity. And what I'm talking about today, where I have arrived today, is that I'm neither my birth identity nor my spiritual identity alone. I have become a union of these two because there was my essence in both of them. There was some truth of me in both of them. But it was me doing the work of extracting my truth from these two externally given identities that helped me to come into my authenticity. This is what I call the union of the human and the divine. It's when you actually find the real you is a mix of these two. It's neither purely spiritual, it's neither purely human. It's neither purely one or the other. It's never in this split polarity. The real you is a union of many different influences, but they're emerging from the essence. They're not coming from the outside. They're emerging from the essence, mixing with your identity, mixing with your personality. So your personality is not just conditioning from the outside, nor is it just pure authenticity. It's this interface between two worlds, where you have the outer world sending us influences and you have your inner world bringing your authenticity. And the way the two meet is what becomes a personality. And for me, I had the gift. Today, I can see it as a gift that my dissociation, my drug overdose, was a gift for me to experience this split so clearly, to see how my world defined identity looks and feels like, how attached are people to this identity, and how my own self defined intentional identity looks like, what it feels in my pure authenticity, and what the union of these two can look like. Because I don't want to just be an outlier, a weirdo. For me, authenticity is not just this spiritual new age notion of I just be who I want and do what I want and reject the world. For me, real authenticity is where we can bridge everything, where we can be whole and integrated into the system, playing a much bigger purpose in the world, taking the world to new stages of evolution by bringing our full self, by bringing our authenticity to the world. For me, this is my work. This is what I am here to help people do, is come into this level of authenticity, this level of wholeness while being fully integrated with the world, fully enjoying the human experience. Because again, spirituality for me is not about rejecting the world, it's not about rejecting materiality, it's not about asceticism. It's about fully embracing the human as divine. This human experience is divine in itself. It's not that the divine is out there. The divine is right here and it's out there and it's everywhere. Everything is divine. That is, for me, what spirituality is about. It's wholeness, completeness, integration with the system, with the potential for infinite growth and evolution, while having fun at the same time. Because while this video has been a bit serious and heavy about my past and everything, really my one of my missions, one of my pillars is enjoying life, because I've also seen that the spiritual path can get very dark and heavy, and it doesn't need to be. I have seen in my own experience that it can be a lot of fun. Your attitude, where you're coming from, defines everything. So you can deal with traumas from a place of seriousness and heaviness, or you can work through traumas with lightness, with humor, with levity. You can bring that attitude to see that the trauma is part of the recipe of your wholeness. It's part of your recipe for greatness. It's not like this trauma happened and it defined you in some bad or wrong way, or it hindered your journey, or it complicated things, or you have become disabled or wounded permanently because something happened to you in your life. No, every single thing that has happened to you is the exact recipe for your greatness, for your magic. It was presented into your life for you to activate your magic, for you to master your magic, for the role that you are meant to play in this world. It's only when you learn to see things in their wholeness, their connectedness, that is when you can extract the gift from everything, and you can see that everything is so beautifully interconnected and so meant to be exactly what it is when it happened. It doesn't mean that things need to persist forever. It doesn't mean that things need to remain shit forever. But what happened gave you what you needed to take you and the world where it is going. That journey is fluid, is effortless. It's kind of what I was saying in one of my previous reels, is that it's a fluid journey. It just keeps going. If you can see that and not get stuck in one place, not get attached to any one identity, any one part of you, any one version of you, you come to create this container which keeps flowing. You don't anchor the container into one place and say, this is who I am for the rest of my life. No, you become much larger, you become much greater than just one version of you. You become someone who does keep changing, but you find that constant in all the change. So for me today, being self-defined, being intentionally defined, having a very strong sense of self, having a core identity is not the same as the sense of self many people experience, where they're attached to very strict versions of themselves that have very specific beliefs and very specific skills and jobs and this and that, and attached to a specific relationship or lover or being single or being ugly or being attractive. It's like, no, I am not defined by any of these characteristics. Yet I know who I am deep down. At my core, I still know who I am. And this is not something that can be communicated in words, nor does it need to be understood by the mind. It's just to know that your soul is this sense of self and identity that I'm talking about, that is not rational, that's not based in one story. It is literally a feeling of infinite and wholeness at the same time. It's you're being whole. The soul feels whole. It's a container, yet it has infinite possibilities, it has infinite potential, and it keeps moving through life, changing, still being the same being, but always changing. Its personality, its outer shell, its mask, its appearance can keep changing. And that fluidity is where your real power comes, because life is a journey where you will keep changing. And if you can allow yourself to keep changing, knowing that deep down You are this soul who is really always the same. At your essence, you remain true to who you are. And then you play different roles, you play different characters. It's like an actor just playing different roles in different movies, but the actor is still the same. If you can become an actor in your life and just see whatever role you're being called to play in different areas of your life, in different phases of your life, and just keep going with this, that is when you find the real beauty of life. And this is the work I am now doing with people mainly, is helping you to come into your soul, living from your soul, living from your authenticity, from your wholeness, while growing infinitely, while having fun, while enjoying life, while having an impact, while fulfilling your purpose, your greatest purpose in life, being part of the system, being integrated with the system, enjoying life, enjoying the material as much as you're exploring and enjoying the divine, the bliss, the ecstasy, and bringing all of that bliss and ecstasy to some very mundane things. Like for me, it's technology. I love technology. I love buying new phones or laptops or whatever it is. I love that. Or having an experience in the material world. But it's like you don't have to just be in this meditative bliss and ecstasy. You can bring that and experience that in the physical world, in relationships, in connection to other people. Your relationships also don't have to suck. I have experienced that with my family, and I continue deepening that and improving my relationships with my family, with friends, chosen friends, my soul family, with my clients. It's always getting richer. You can always keep enhancing your relationships, enjoying them even more. You have that power. I have done that. I have seen people go through that with very tough relationships, very strained relationships, even estranged relationships where people have stopped talking to each other for months or years, and then they reconnect and they're able to build that bridge again, to build that trust again, to build that connection again. I have helped people do that. I have seen people do that. I have had people help me do that. It's possible. You can really transform every single aspect of your life. I am a living proof of that. That's one of the reasons I've shared this story. When I was having a drug overdose, when I was dissociated, I did not have a good relationship with my family. It was very strained. And for many, 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 many years, it remained the same. I was not being accepted. I did not feel accepted for who I was. I was wearing a mask. I was pretending. I was lying all the time. Then, when the shift happened and I decided to be more intentional, I said I wanted to have a relationship with my family. And I started working on improving it. And it was not easy, also because I did not have the kind of guidance that I provide nowadays. I do feel like I have gained a level of expertise in helping people with this that makes it so much easier because I get to bring my wisdom into it. The kind of advice I was getting for a long period was straining my relationship further and further. Is when I started listening to my own intuition and guidance that things started getting better rapidly. And I also then got help from better mentors, better friends, better guides. And now I'm able to bring that perspective to others to help them to transform their relationships to themselves first, because that is the central relationship. Every single relationship on the outside is a reflection of your relationship to parts of yourself. If you have a strained relationship with, let's say, your dad, your mom, your brother, your sister, friends, teachers, colleagues, whatever, it's all reflecting your relationship to those parts within yourself. And the healing of those parts, the transformation, the evolution, the growth of your relationship with those parts changes things pretty automatically on the outside. I have seen this time and time again. When I try to convince people, when I try to force people to change, when I try to make them change through coaching, counseling, it never works. But the moment I shift, I'm able to say things differently. They hear it differently. They start behaving differently. Very quickly, things shift. Very, very, very quickly. But if you can realize that you have that power to come into a different version of yourself, a different relationship with yourself, and then realize that you will navigate things very differently, which will create different reactions and responses from other people. That is where the real healing happens. I would love to help you, to guide you if this message resonates for you. If you feel called to it, I would love to work with you, to bring you into the community that I'm building, to work with others, because so much of this work happens when you're seeing others going through the same, when it's reflected. Because I've been facilitating groups for over 9 years now, 9.5 years now, and I've seen this, that just one person's experience, one person's journey can have such a profound impact and effect on the whole group, because they see that in themselves. They see that now, if this person can do something different, I can do something different. And that just keeps rippling ahead. You bring something which helps others, they bring something that helps you. And really, the amount of transformation that can take place is unimaginable. And the kind of life that you can experience, I'm telling you, I went from being addicted to drugs, having no sense of self, being a complete chaotic mess of different influences, to being completely aligned with who I am in my essence, in my soul, living from my soul, not feeling obligated, not feeling compelled to fulfill people's expectations. And at the same time, from not having great relationships, from being isolated, feeling very alone inside, feeling like a stranger, like an outsider, no one gets me, I feel misunderstood, to having great relationships, having a soul family, having my birth family, having love between us, deepening that love more and more with each passing experience. All of that is possible for you also. If I resonate, if my energy resonates for you, great. I welcome you. If not, take this message, go somewhere else. Find the space that resonates for you. Find the teachers, the guides, the mentors, the soul family, the community that resonates for you. But just know that it's possible. It's possible for you. I would love to hear how this touched you in the comments, what you felt. If there's any questions that you have, if you would like me to go deeper into any topic, please drop a comment, and I'm going to continue on this journey of 28 days and more. For me, this is a lifestyle, this is lifelong. This 28-day journey is just this package, this container of being in India, connecting and integrating my birth identity and my chosen identity into one. And as I transition out of this, I'm going to continue on my journey teaching this, getting deeper and deeper with this in the academy that I'm building. So you'll find all the information in the link on my profile. And if you have any questions, just drop me a message or drop a comment. Thank you so much for joining me, for watching this. And I will be happy to continue sharing my journey with you and seeing you in the comments and or in the academy. Bye bye.